Shalom, family. I had to make this video, especially after the video that my brother posted yesterday, dealing with the attack on Israel or blacks in America and around the world. I could have waited to do this, but I felt that I needed to get this out. Many of us understand that we are in the last days, but I don't think we truly understood how far in the last days we are, how far in the book of Revelation we are. It can become overwhelming. It can scare you at times. It can make you feel like you're by yourself. But we know that the Most High is with us, and it all has been prophesied, and we know how it's going to end. And Israel wins. For the Yah wins. So one thing I wanted to do is discuss the dragon. And who is the dragon today? If you saw the previous video I did about the alt-left versus the alt-right, there's some new concepts that you may not have heard dealing with Revelation 12 and the sign of the woman, with the 12 stars on her head about to give birth, and the dual meanings of that prophecy. Because one would have to ask, why is it in the book of Revelation, right? We know the book of Revelation deals with the revelation of Jesus Christ, but it also deals with the revelation of how Jesus or Yeshua battles this final beast. And so when we look at the prophet Daniel, and we look at that statue of his with the head of gold, which is Nebuchadnezzar, and let's go all the way down the statue to the final world empire, which is Rome. And this is the beast in the last days. It is what many have referred to as the revived Roman Empire. So I need you to understand that I'm not saying I'm 100% correct, as I said in the previous video. Because first of all, I cannot answer every single item or description of the beast. I cannot go back in history and find each piece of that occurred. And the thing is, I'm sure it's there. But we don't have access to everything, right? We don't have access to all information. Now, with the internet, we have access to a lot that we wouldn't have had in the past. So now, we have the ability to consolidate information now, which we didn't have in the past, which is one of the reasons people could not understand the end times or prophecy. The main reason, though, is that they don't know who true Israel is. And I'm going to repeat again for you Gentiles out there, the true Israel is the Negro. The true Israel is the Negroes who went into captivity around the world as slaves, and some of their ancestors, who were scattered amongst the globe to all nations as prophesied in the Bible. And not only those in the Americas, right, in the rest of the world, but also in Africa, there's still tribes of Israel in Africa. You call them Africans, but they are truly the Hebrew Israelites of the Bible, which was not their original name, by the way. That's something that you all gave us, that the Gentiles gave us, that Rome gave us, that the Greeks gave us. You all called us Hebrews. You all called us Jews. But that's not what we called ourselves, and that's not what Father Yah had called us. But that is what we're known as. That's what we're known by today. So in this study, and I didn't want it to be too long, but it looked like it might be a little long. I don't know. But in this study, we're going to see the dragon is on the move. The final push against true Israel is here. And we just don't see it. We've been attacked for all of our existence, but the the intensity has increased, the magnitude and the consolidation of forces around Israel has increased, and you're going to see that this whole thing that's happening today, terrorism and all of this, is all about you. It's all about you, Israel. And you know what? There's no one who can help you but Father Yah. Because you know what? In reality, who are they fighting against? They're fighting against Father Yah. So, and the reason the devil's coming after you is because you're prophesied to rule and reign with Yeshua. You're prophesied to rule and reign with Father Yah. You're prophesied to rule and reign with Jesus Christ, who I know many of you Hebrew Israelites don't like that name, but you know, you need to look at our other videos. We discuss how it's translations and transliteration. So, you know, we're not going to go there. And also, you know, some of you Hebrew Israelites out there, you know, just step back. Don't even comment on the video, because I mean, some of you all don't even study this, you know, and some of you do, and some of you go off left, some of you go off on the right, but there's a very few of you who truly have somewhat of an understanding of what's happening here. And so, you know, you get caught up in things that are of no profit. Okay, so, you know, I understand the need to not basically confront my brethren out there, you know, but you have an issue there, especially with certain things that you teach that are just off, and that's misleading the people. So I had to make that comment because I get a lot of comments on these videos, and sometimes I get stupid and dumb comments, okay? So one thing I'm going to try not to do right now is talk about things outside of this topic right here. I'm going to try to stay focused. And so please don't try to bring me around into other areas, because I'm not going to discuss it. We're talking about the dragon here. We're talking about what we discussed in that previous video about the alt-left and the alt-right, and how there's a Hegelian dialectic being played on us right now in America to get Israel in America involved in civil strife so that the dragon can oppress us and suppress us. The dragon is sly. The dragon is very shrewd. I call it evil genius, right? The devil is an evil genius. His people are evil geniuses. So when you think they're going right, they're going left. When you think they're going up, they're going down. It is the sleight of hand of the magician. Okay, so I think it's an important time in the history of Israel, because Israel is under full-fledged assault at this moment. And you're going to see why. So the dragon is trying to devour Israel before she is born. In the previous show titled Alt-Left versus Alt-Right, I discussed how there's probably a dual fulfillment concerning the birth of the Messiah in Revelation 12 and the birth of Israel as a nation again. Well, in this study, we will see that this appears to be more true than initially thought. The final push against the awakening of Israel, or the birth of Israel, is here. A global push by the dragon kingdoms against God's awakening kingdom is here. It is here, people. Now, like I said, I'm not going to set a time. I'm not going to set a date. All I can do is tell you what I see. Now, maybe I'm wrong. I will keep saying that, because like I say, I am not God. Okay? I don't know everything. I am not Father Yah. I am his humble servant. Okay? So if I'm wrong, that's possible. Can I answer every question? No. Okay? But what we need to understand is the signs are there. And you need to go back and watch all the other end time videos. You have to. You have to. You have to go back and look at the alt-left, alt-right. You have to. These videos do not stand by themselves. They do not stand alone. You must understand that this is a huge picture being painted by words within the Bible. This is a huge picture being revealed over the course of many months of study. So you can't just watch one video or half of a video or a piece of a video and not study it. So you're going to try to understand some things that really you will not be able to understand unless you go through the studies of the previous end time videos. You have to do it. I know some of you take out little pieces of the videos or watch a few minutes and then you think, hey, I understand what he's talking about. But no, you don't. You have to spend time in the Word. So we're going to talk about that initial video that was posted yesterday by Natural News. Natural News is a health site. And in the past, it has talked about the agenda to kill blacks in America. However, it is not just blacks in America, but in Africa as well. This expose will happen on November 7th, 2017. Now, the question is, why do they want to kill us? It is because of who we are. Now, white America would tell you it doesn't matter who Israel is. It doesn't matter that Israel is black. It's all about the church, where in reality, it's all about you. The Bible is all about you. Okay? Now, if you read Genesis to Revelation, it's all about God dealing with his covenant people, Israel. Now, I'm not saying that the grafted in is not important, because the grafted in is just that. They're adopted kids into a family. Okay? And they get all the benefits of the family, but they are not the original children. Okay? So, but they are part of the family, and God will treat them as family, right? But they are not the original children who the original covenant was there for, to rule and reign. So what's happening now is, now that the awakening of Israel is happening globally as prophesied in the land of our captivity, Satan and his people will try to exterminate Israel globally. However, God will destroy the daughter of Babylon and her allies. The 400-year prophecy concerning our captivity is coming to an end, and the dragon is very, very, very angry about that. And you're going to see, you're going to understand why this is so important today and why all of this is coming out now. It just so happens that we're at the end of the 400-year captivity as prophesied. And all of these things are happening. And like I said, you have to go back to the other videos to see exactly what is happening, okay? So let's go ahead and look at the video that kicked this off for me yesterday.
There is a concerted, organized, long-standing effort to eliminate African Americans from the human gene pool. Not just African Americans, by the way, but Africans. This is happening right now. You are being subjected to it. It's happening through multiple vectors of science, medicine, and food, and it's all being done covertly. So almost no one is aware of this. The entire mainstream media refuses to acknowledge this. The scientific community will say that none of this is true. It's undeniable. You will see there is a concerted, organized effort to eliminate blacks.
So once again, you see, there are good Europeans, there are good Gentiles who are trying to warn you, Israel, that you are under attack. In Israel, you have always been under attack. And then those of us who try to warn you, you call us conspiracy theorists, right? And then you look down on us because it's a negative word, right? So what you want is your best day tomorrow, or next year is going to be better than last year, and all of these things that you hear in modern Christendom. Okay? But that's not true. Okay? Now, in the end, it's true. In the end, your best day will be in the future, because we get to go back in the land, and we get to go back and live under the rule of our Messiah. We get to go back to our homeland. Okay, so in the end, it's going to be true. Okay, but the church has been manipulated. The church has been infiltrated, and what we call the church. I mean, in reality, the church is those born again of the Spirit who live in the vine, which is Jesus Christ or Yeshua. So, and for you Hebrew Israelites who don't believe in Yeshua, as Messiah, I don't even want to hear it. Step off. Okay? Step off. I don't want to hear it. Because you don't know your word at all, and neither do you have the spirit of Yah in you. Okay? So let's continue this study, and we're going to see that this agenda is just part of a huge plan. So as I mentioned before, all of the signs that we saw in the alt-left, alt-right video, okay, that was precursors to something. What is this something? Okay, we discussed in that video how the dragon is ready to devour the baby as soon as it was born, right? It's the same thing happened again. It's that dual fulfillment we're seeing. The dragon is wrong, okay? And you need to go back and see the other video to see why the dragon is wrong. And we do know that the dragon is the devil. Okay, so the dragon is synonymous with Rome, the power of the devil. So U.S. war game imagines West Africa invasion after a New York attack. So the United States is simulating an attack on West Africa after a devastating attack on New York. Why would they do this? Now, one reason is that much of Israel is still in West Africa. The other reason is that Russia and China are moving away from the petrodollar, and China is getting most of its resources from Africa. The U.S. wants to control Africa to control China and Russia. However, according to the scriptures, this will be the end of America. So what we see happening is the devil, okay, Rome, is circling the world. Okay, it has its military made up of many nations, and it's encircling the world, and so now they're planning war games against West Africa. Who's in West Africa? Our people. Who's in West Africa? The true Israelites of the Bible. Okay, not those fake Jews in our homeland, where they're in a sliver of our homeland, right? So you must understand, they're preparing. They're preparing. So let's look at a video that discusses this.
Freedom of Information Act shows America's been simulating an invasion of West Africa following an imaginary terror attack in New York. RT's Polly Boyko explains.
This fictional scenario begins in May 2023. There's been a devastating terror attack in New York. Terrorists detonate truck bombs at either end of the Lincoln Tunnel. They kill and injure hundreds of Americans. And just like 9/11 led to the war on terror in the Middle East, this fictional attack leads to the deployment of U.S. and Canadian troops in Africa. They're fighting African Al-Qaeda militants. And the president promises it'll take just 3 years, according to this fictional script. But 2 years into the war, and things aren't going well. There is a 90% increase in violence in Mauritania and Mali, where the war has quietly spread to as well. And that's despite the fact that there's 70,000 US and Canadian troops in the region. Now, 3 years later, just as the troops are meant to be pulling out, according to the president's timeline, the war game throws another painfully familiar spanner into the works, and that is a fictional general sending a fictional communique saying that he recommends delaying pulling out the troops by 1 year at least. In fact, he recommends sending more troops to the region in order to avoid the mission failing entirely. So the word quagmire certainly springs to mind. It is all pretty reminiscent of the US's other real forays abroad, for example, in Afghanistan. But the whole point of this war game is to help prime the future generals of the US. It was being...
So as you saw, there's a plan to invade West Africa. And by 2023, America will have troops stationed in Africa. Okay, just like they do around the rest of the world, just like they do in the Middle East, just like they do in Europe, encircling Russia. You know, it's a complex game going on here. Now, the question is, what is all of this about? Is it truly just to have a world government? Is it truly just to encircle and control and dominate the globe? To be the evil henchman who who rules the world. That's part of it. But there's probably another strategy going on here. There's probably another agenda going on, and that's you, Israel. Now, why do I say that? Let's continue on and see exactly what's happening, and then we'll be able to put all the pieces together, right? We'll be able to see it more clearly. So right now we know that China is in Africa. China has become Africa's largest trading partner and has greatly expanded its economic ties to the continent. But its growing activities there have raised questions about its non-interference policy. So the European countries are concerned that, and America, of course, that China is in Africa. And China has made a lot of agreements with Africa. And what China has done, China has built infrastructure, right? China has tightened economic ties with Africa. So China has invested heavily in Africa, while at the same time they're getting some of the resources of Africa. So although China is using Africa like most other nations, China is actually investing in the infrastructure of Africa. They are building highways, schools, hospitals, and restaurants, making Africa more modern. Unlike the Europeans, who just raped and pillaged and invested nothing in Africa, and who continues to try to destroy our people in Africa. So what do you have here? The Europeans are trying to kill two birds with one stone. The U.S. and its allies are maneuvering itself to stop Russia and China from leaving the petrodollar. Now, what better way than to stop China's alliances with Africa? By invading Africa under the pretext of terrorism. America and the European nations plan to subjugate China, and at the same time the Israelites who are left in West Africa. So here you know many times with the Luciferians and with the global dragon power or kingdom, they have more than one agenda. Okay, there's always multiple agendas, right? So here we see that they can also not only stop China and Russia from leaving the petrodollar by invading Africa, because then they control those resources that they would have to then come through the European nations to get. That now they're going to invade Africa under the pretense of terrorism, or pretext of terrorism. So here they tell the world, we're going into Africa because now ISIS is in Africa. So it just so happens ISIS goes to all the nations and all the places that we want to take over and invade and control. We put our military there and we never leave. Okay, and in that video, and you can go watch it, they talk about how in that scenario, just like we're in Afghanistan, we will be in Africa forever, because the goal is world conquest. Okay, now this whole beast system, right? This whole beast system is trying to create that global one world system, but why? Why? Is it just to get the resources and the wealth and the control of nations? And that's part of it. But like I said, there's always multiple reasons that they do things. So the U.S. is already in Niger Africa. So, their end goal is to have an occupying force by 2023. So what does that mean? That means there's going to be a huge invading force in Africa, bombs dropping, people dying, masses of nation states within Africa, because Africa is a continent, destroyed and killed by the European forces. Now, that's their plan. Okay, now will it work out that way? So Niger and the U.S., okay, Niger is, there's the nation of Niger, they call it Niger or Niger, right? Because it's French, right? Niger means black. Okay, now Niger, you have the Niger River, okay, and that's where our people, part of the area our people settled when they came from Jerusalem. After the attack by the Romans, they went into West Africa near the Niger River, which is why they call us nigger, right? This is why they call us nigger, because our people live near the Niger River. So anyway, Senator John McCain said the White House hasn't been forthcoming regarding the ambush in Niger, or Niger, however they want to say it, which left 4 U.S. soldiers dead and 2 wounded. McCain told reporters on Thursday the Senate Armed Services Committee, which he chairs, has been told very little about the incident in Niger. He added that the committee may have to take legal action to get answers from the White House. Now, my supposition is that, okay, those soldiers who died, they were up to something, right? Obviously. Now, the black soldier who, for some reason, was separated from the other guys, you know, and they talk about how he got separated. What is that about, right? I don't know. Could it be that, you know, hey, he saw what the goal is and what the plan is that the Europeans have for Africa, and maybe he didn't like it. That's just supposition on my part, right? But there's something strange about that story. So America is already in Africa. Okay, America has over 1,500 troops in Africa, right? And they made alliances with some of our people in West Africa. Because our people think it's all about, you know, economics and these relationships, not knowing that the true target is them. Okay, the true target is us, right? We saw in the first video that in America, there's a plan to destroy the black man and the black woman, right? We saw that in the first video. Not only that, we know throughout history, the United Nations and America have sent loads and loads of vaccines to Africa under the pretense of helping us get healthy, right, to destroy our immune systems and kill us, right? So they vaccinate us, right? And then that weakens our immune system and gives us other diseases, and then we cannot fight off new pathogens and viruses and strains that come against us. So, you know, also, if you notice, you know, when America went in there and vaccinated our people in Africa, you know, they started, you know, getting all these Ebola and all these other diseases that never even existed before. And definitely not in the human population. So we know that Ebola is a man-made disease. So you are the target, Israel. Now, here's the thing, okay? You can walk in fear. You can walk in denial. Truth is truth. Facts is facts. Will they come after us? Yes. Will they come after me? Maybe. You know, but Father God is in control. Right now, what we need to do, we have to seek the Most High. See, remember the prophecy dealing with our return back to the land, right? God is going to pour His Spirit upon us in a time of darkness, and we're going to see that as we move on. But what causes that darkness? What is happening? Because when Israel left Egypt the first time, they called on the Most High. What forces the complacent Negro, black, aka Hebrew Israelite, to call on the Most High? What forces that? What forces the you know, all of these different camps and factions and everything to come in the unity of the faith and seek the Most High? Tribulation worketh patience, patience experience, and experience hope. Okay, so you must understand that these things are going to come against our people, and it's already against us, right? So now, one thing I want to clarify, you know, and I don't want to make a big deal out of it, you know, as you can see, you know, the curses are coming to an end, but they're not over, right? And the curses do not apply to Latinos and Puerto Ricans unless they're descendants of Negro slaves, right? So a lot of you want to say the Hispanics and the Puerto Ricans and the Native Indians or Israel. Okay, come on, let's stop the foolishness. All right, it's not true. And you don't even see the curses on them. You might see some of them in poverty, but the curses aren't on them. So let's stop the foolishness. All right? I'm like, you know, for some reason the camps want to include them in there, maybe because they like their women or something. That's on them, right? The truth is truth. This channel's about truth. All right? And even I find that Pastor Omar Tebow, he says the same thing about the Mexicans and Latinos being Hebrew Israelites. It's not true. Unless they're descendants of slaves who came over here from Africa, on boats, on ships, as prophesied around the world, they are not Hebrew Israelites. So let's stop it. Okay? So you need to focus on who they're after. They're after the black man. They're after the Negro. They are after the true Hebrew Israelites, the true covenant people of God. Let's stop the lies. Let's stop the foolishness. All right? So why are we in Niger? The true target is not terrorism. It is not ISIS. It is to invade and control another continent and then to attack Israel globally. Let's look at another video dealing with this issue of the U.S. and Niger.
For more on this, we're turning tonight to former U.S. diplomat Jim Jatras. Jim, nice to have you on. Okay, forthcoming. You bet. John McCain says the White House has not been forthcoming. So where does this go when he's talking subpoena? What do you think?
Well, to tell the truth, that he shouldn't have to subpoena anything. He's the chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and the administration should be willing to provide him whatever information he asks for. My only concern here is that, are they just going to look at the worm's eye view, what happened on the ground tactically, who maybe messed up here, that these guys got killed, or are they going to look at the bigger picture that I think most Americans are worried about? Niger, where is Niger? Why we have Americans fighting and dying in Niger? What other countries? Under what authority do we have Americans fighting and dying? I think those are the real questions there, and I hope Chairman McCain and the Armed Services Committee delve into that, not just who messed up here.
And what is your analysis? Why are we in Niger?
Well, in a way, some people, especially on the Democratic side, are saying, well, this is going to be Trump's Benghazi. Well, maybe there's an element to that, because remember, the enemy here in Niger is Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb. This is the same group that the French had come in 2012 against in Mali, and it all leads back to the boneheaded decision to overthrow Gaddafi, and which is just a huge shot of adrenaline, a big pile of weapons to all of these terrorist groups that destabilize now the whole region, including Niger. So let's look at the big picture here, not just what happened here a few days ago that tragically resulted in these deaths.
Well, the mainstream media has got a lot of Americans ginned up about the fact that the White House is not forthcoming. You heard what John McCain said, and Secretary Mattis said today that he does not have a full report on what happened in this attack. How unusual is this?
I think that they should have most of those details now. It doesn't sound so much that it's not the details are available even to the Pentagon, but even what the Pentagon knows is not being turned over to the committee. I don't think Chairman McCain would be that angry and essentially accuse them of not cooperating and threaten a subpoena unless he thought they had more information than they were giving him.
I mean, it's 2 weeks after the attack. These investigations shouldn't take that long because the military is in total control of this. But what I find interesting is that the intel for the military told the patrol that violence was, quote, unlikely. Apparently, pretty obvious they got it wrong. Why and how?
And the same questions people asked about the death that occurred in Yemen early in the Trump presidency. Again, how many countries do we have where Americans are in these situations where violence is unlikely, but it's likely to happen anyway? And that's the real question that I think needs to be gotten to here. I hope the committee addresses it.
So as you can see, America's in Niger. They're not forthcoming of why they're in Niger. They're not forthcoming of what happened to these soldiers who died because they're up to no good, right? Now, the question is, what is their ultimate goal? What is the final agenda? Okay, it's obvious to see world government. It's obvious to see global conquest. Okay, but as we see throughout the scriptures, because the scriptures tell us everything we need to know, it is about you, Israel. This is why they're going to West Africa. It is about you. Why aren't they invading Egypt? Why aren't they, invading Morocco? Okay, because it's about you, and the dragon is coming after you. So Dunford paints a dire picture of the fight to come in Niger and beyond. U.S. in Somalia. The Obama administration has intensified a clandestine war in Somalia over the past year using special operations troops, airstrikes, private contractors, and African allies in an escalating campaign against Islamic militants in the anarchic Horn of African nation. Hundreds of American troops now rotate through makeshift bases in Somalia, in the largest military presence since the United States pulled out of the country after the Black Hawk Down incident in '93. The Somalia campaign, as it is described by American and African officials and international monitors of the Somali conflict, is partly designed to avoid repeating that debacle, which led to the deaths of 18 American soldiers, but it carries enormous risks, including more American casualties, botched airstrikes that kill civilians, and potential for the United States to be drawn even more deeply into a troubled country that so far has stymied all efforts to fix it. So not only is America in Niger, okay, America is also in Somalia. Okay, so America is already in Africa. So I had my frames out of order here. So the Pentagon, this is still in reference here to the Niger invasion, and about how McCain did not get the information that he was looking. So, but Dunford, as we saw in that previous slide, this should have showed after that one. Let's look at what Dunford stated. But in addressing questions about the Pentagon's broader mission in Africa, Dunford ended up hinting at the next stage in the global war on terror. See, this is a global war. A patchwork of advice and assist missions spread across the planet, not just to fight terror groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda, but to prevent them from ever emerging in the first place. So we see this mission is to spread across the planet, right? This is global conquest, people. So you saw in the previous video, the previous slide, right, that we're already in Somalia. We've been in Somalia for years. Now we're in Niger. I like to call it Niger, right? Or if you want to use the English phrase of it, nigger, right? In Niger, nigger, whatever, however you want to pronounce it, because that's where the word comes from. So here we see a global mission to spread across the planet in the next few years, quote unquote, to fight ISIS and Al-Qaeda. Now, what you need to understand is ISIS and Al-Qaeda are U.S. and Israeli backed groups, okay? And they use them to cause chaos throughout the planet to give them an excuse to invade other nations. Because you see, without an ISIS and without an Al-Qaeda, America would just look like the big bad bully who's invading other countries and taking over their land and implementing, global conquest, which is what they're doing. But in order to have the Americans behind them, they have to let America and other Europeans know that, hey, we're only here to save you. We're only here to help, right? When in reality is to implement a global totalitarian dictatorship. But it's also to crush and suppress Israel. Now, here's the thing, which is why, and I'm going to go off on a tangent here. If you watch a lot of the future movies, right, the movies dealing with the future and science and future advanced tech civilizations, you don't see much of us here. Now, granted, you don't see much of us in Hollywood, but definitely you don't see much of us in those movies. Why? Because there's a plan for us not to be here, right? Because as you saw in the first video, the plan is to destroy us, is to kill Israel, just like Pharaoh did in the past. So that's why I say you need to go look at the other videos so that you can see the analogies, right, to what happened in the past. The Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. What was is what will be. Okay, so what's happening is, when Pharaoh saw that Israel was growing, and reproducing, and that they were strong and stronger than them and mightier than them, then Pharaoh did what? He oppressed them and he tried to kill them. And it was like, leave the women, okay, but kill the men, kill the boys, right? So that's why the men are always the targets, and that's why they're trying to make men homosexuals as well, right? They're trying to destroy the men. That's why when in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and I don't know if it's still that way today, in order to get help from the government, the man couldn't be in the house. Okay, is to break up the family, to destroy Israel, right? you can have Europeans deny this all they want to, right? But the facts are there. They just refuse to look at it. So, like for instance, since we were talking about movies, I just watched the new War of the Planet of the Apes, right? And if you watch the old ones, it's obviously talking about the black man, aka Hebrew Israelites, right? And how they were enslaved, the monkeys were, right? So this new one took a different twist, right? It took a different twist, and they had in there Alpha and Omega, and they had the monkeys being crucified on these crosses, like an X, and they had in the War of the Planet of the Apes, they a lot of symbolism of the deliverance of the monkeys, the apes, right? And so, like, you see Caesar, he gets shot in the side by an arrow, symbolic of what happened, who in the Bible, right? They also have in the War of the Planet of the Apes, in the end, if you go all the way to the end, because it's a little slow, if you go all the way to the end, they have an Exodus experience, right? All the monkeys going to the promised land, right? They finally leaving the land of the white man, right? And they're going back home to the promised land. Not only that, they had a few chords that remind you of the chords from the Exodus movie with Charlton Heston. So, once again, they're playing games with us. They're putting the message out because they know what's happening, but at the same time, they're trying to prevent what is prophesied to happen from happening. And that's part of why there's this global mission, right? To encircle the world and to enslave Israel. Why? Why? Is it just global conquest, or is it to get to the scattered? So in Revelation 13, we see that there are 7 heads. Okay, I'm going to read Revelation 13, verses 1 through 4. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded unto death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? So, NATO is an alliance of nations with agreed cooperation for defense. Right? NATO is the European nations aligning themselves for a mutual defense pact. Right? In essence, NATO is a global military force. Revelation 13:4 says, Who is like unto the beast, and who is able to make war with him? Do you see this huge military, right? This huge weaponized system with what they say they have: nuclear weapons, mega bombs, microwave weapons, smart weapons. Who can make war with the beast? In reality, no other group of nations could truly fight against this system. Now, what you must understand is that NATO is truly part of the revived Roman Empire. It is an alliance of nations, right? Loosely fitted together. So the G7, in my opinion, okay, the G7 is the 7 heads of the beast, because the beast is that final world government system in the last days, right? Synonymous with that statue in Daniel, with Nebuchadnezzar being the head. And that final world government at the end is going to be, the leg of iron, the legs of iron, and the feet of iron and clay. So they're going to be partly strong and partly weak. And so the G7, it originates with the group of 6. It was founded ad hoc in 75. They say ad hoc, but it was planned. Consisting of finance ministers and central bank governors from France, West Germany, Italy, Japan, the United Kingdom, and the United States. when Giscard d'Estaing invited them for an informal gathering at the Chateau of Rambouillet near Paris in a relaxed and private setting, the intent was to discuss current world issues dominated by the time by the oil crisis in a frank and informal manner. Yeah, right. The G6 followed an unofficial gathering starting in 1974 of senior financial officials from the United States, the UK, West Germany, Japan, and France. They were called the Library Group, or the Group of Five, because they met informally in the White House Library in Washington, D.C. This is not to be confused with the current but completely different Group of Five. A Group of Five top nations with emerging economies formed in 2005. Canada became the 7th member to begin attending the summit in 1976, after which the name Group of Seven, or G7 Summit, was used. Following 1994's G7 Summit in Naples, Russian officials held separate meetings with leaders of the G7 after the group summit. This informal arrangement was dubbed the Political Eight, or P8, or colloquially the G7 plus G1. So here, it's interesting that, when you look at scripture, sometimes you have to look at the way things are worded and interpretations and translations and transliterations that occur. So sometimes we end up having an understanding that we think we may understand, which really it was saying something else because the original language was clearer, right? So like, let's say, the original was in Greek. If we read it in Greek, it probably would be a little clearer. So, here, take note that there's a G7, right? The 7 heads, remember? 7 heads, right? And then there's a +1, remember that. And also remember here that there was a group of 5 initially. So G8, so the G7 is now the G8. So the G7 +1 is how they refer to it. So Revelation 17 says this, "And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, which I believe to be Rome, which controls the beast, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. They that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen. Remember that group of 5? And 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast." So here we see, that there was 5 that fell, right? And then we see that, because remember it says there are 7 kings, right? So there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. So we also see in verse 11 that the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th. So we have the G7, in my opinion, we have, which is the 7 heads, all right? But even he is the 8th. So now we have the G8, right, with the addition of Russia. So the question is the 8th Russia? And is the Antichrist going to come from Russia? Because here's the problem, at least the way I see it, in prophecy. Sometimes when you're looking at the scriptures, it's the nation or the beast itself. The beast represent nations, just like that Daniel statue. The beast represents nations, and that nation is usually synonymous with a leader. But that leader is not necessarily on the scene yet, right? That final son of perdition, that final Antichrist who ends up in the lake of fire, right? Because I think what's happening is that this empire, this kingdom, of course, is being created for the Antichrist. It is being created for the false Messiah. And so since this system is being created for the false Messiah, he is the beast because it's his system they're developing, but he's not on the scene yet. Okay, I think he's here today, to be honest with you. But once again, we're just looking at the story that Revelation seems to be telling us. So we have 7, right? But even he is the 8, right? That G7 plus 1. So then we also have the fact that in verse 12 there are 10 horns. So we have 7 heads and then there's 10 horns. Those 10 horns of rulership, right? Those 10 power structures that makes decisions. So that G7 is an economic, political, security group of people that basically determine where the world's going to go, and they all are European nations. So the 10 horns, who are they, right? Have you ever heard of the WEU? It is the Western European Union. The Western European Union had 10 member countries, 6 associate member countries, 5 observer countries, and 7 associate partner countries. On June 14, 2001, the WEU President Solana stated that there was no foreseeable reason to change the status of the non-member countries in the organization. So in other words, everyone else will stay non-members. The 10 will stay the original 10 members. The original 10 members, they can vote. So all member countries of the WEU were also members of both NATO, right? It's the arm, it's the leg. NATO, the legs and the claws of the beast. So all of these members are members of NATO and the European Union. These are the only nations that had full voting rights. So basically the ones in power are Belgium, France, Germany, Greece, Italy, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Portugal, Spain, and the UK. This is the 10 horns of the beast, the final world government beast system. Okay, so these 10 nations have voting rights, which means they say what happens and what doesn't happen. They say what we can do as other nations or what we can't do. The member nations, they can give their input, but they have no power, right? So these 10, they're the 10 horns of the beast. They're the ones with the power. Revelation 17:12. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings, 1 hour with the beast. So when the beast comes into full power, these 10 kings will be ruling with him, right? Now these 10 kings have a level of power. They have a level of influence, right? But it's not that full dominating power yet that they're trying to get to. It is not that final dictatorial, all-compassing beast with iron teeth, but they're almost there. So the question is, right, how do you go after people scattered around the globe? So we saw in the other teaching, the alt-left versus the alt-right, we saw that based upon my understanding, what I'm saying, what I'm seeing, let's say, and I'm not saying I'm 100% correct, but that, that dual fulfillment of what happened with the woman and the child and how the dragon was there to try to devour the child when it was born, the same thing, the analogy or that thing that was, that is not, that but shall occur, right? Because in the past, we saw that Pharaoh tried to kill the child when Moses was born, and Herod tried to kill the child, right? So today we see that now the beast, the dragon, is rearing its ugly head to devour the child before it is born, which is Israel. And you have to go look at the other videos to see why I am saying this. Okay, so for the devil to invade every country in the world, in order to go after true Israel, they have to build up the facade of bringing peace. They have to convince the world that they are there to stop terrorism when they are the causes of terror. This allows the common man and woman to think this is for their protection, when in reality it is a war against God and his covenant people. Some Europeans do not believe that the Negro is Israel. Why? Because they have been deceived by the devil. The whole world has been deceived by the devil. This is the only way to go after a scattered people who have been hidden by God around the world. Revelation 12:9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world. He was cast out unto the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. So the devil deceives the whole world. This is why the Europeans don't understand what's happening. This is why they don't understand end-time prophecy, because they don't know who Israel is. They are deceived. So what we see here is, as I mentioned in the previous video, dealing with the alt-left, alt-right, is that God took what was meant for evil and used it for good. And so, in essence, Israel was being punished, but Israel was also being saved. Because what happened? Instead of Israel being in one locale, one nation, all grouped up, where the devil knew where they were, and he can attack them all at once and destroy them all, God spread them around the globe. So they were scattered around the globe to hide Israel, to hide the child from the face of the dragon. That's Revelation, right? So God used what was meant to chastise Israel to also be a deliverance of Israel. Because now Israel is in the Americas, Israel is in Europe, Israel is in Asia, Israel is all over the globe. So how can the devil get them? How can he attack them? They're around the globe. So in order to get to scattered Israel, the devil has to control the globe. The devil has to control the world. The devil has to get all nations to agree and come into a commonality, right? So now what happens is the nations decide, hey, now we're one group of people again, Rome, right? Basically. Now one group of people, the Luciferians, right? Descendants of Esau, right? And some are Japhet, but now they control the world. Now they're able to try to go after Israel. So how do you go after Israel without saying you're going after Israel? Because if you say you're going after Israel, then you got to tell the world we're fighting against God. So you have to create the facade of terrorism. So now terrorism pops up around the globe, right? Pops up here, pops up there, pops up there. And so now we say, hey, we can't have terrorism, right? We have to protect the world. So America put bases in all around the world, right? And they never leave. And now they're surrounding Israel, right? Because now they're controlling the globe where the scattered are located. So the dragon is coming after Israel. So in Isaiah 60 we see, arise and shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people, but the Lord shall arise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. And the Gentiles shall come to thy light, and the kings to the brightness of thy rising. Lift up thine eyes round about, and see, all they gather themselves together, they come to thee. Thy son shall come from afar, and thy daughter shall be nursed at thy side. So here is the darkness. The darkness is coming, people. The darkness is pretty much here, to be honest. But that full darkness is going to cover the land, and it's going to cover the people. And the whole world is going to be occupied by this beast system, by the dragon system, by Tiamat. If any of you know about those ancient stories of the dragon with the 7 heads, because that's what it is, right? It's Tiamat, right? When Tiamat is the dragon, which is the devil. Okay, so here the world is surrounded. Okay, the world is encased in the arms of the dragon. Okay, led by America. But if you watch the other videos that we've done, if you watch those other shows, you will see that all of this seems to be lining up based upon what we said. All of this seems to be lining up with the deliverance of Israel. All at the end, where all the signs are in the heavens and all the signs on earth, seems to all be coming together all at one time. And it just so happens that Israel captivity comes to an end in 2019, at least based upon our calculations, from the history that we do know, or that we think we understand. So we're at the end of our 400 captivity, and the dragon is waiting to devour the child. And that is wrong. It is that 7-headed beast, which is NATO, which is the G7, which is the Western European Union. It's the European nation. That is the dragon. So it is here, people. You must understand, though, that it's all about you. It is here. And so can I look at a calendar and say it's going to happen on this date? No, I can't do that. I can't give you a time, a place, a date and time. I can't do that. All I can do is look at the scriptures and see what the story says would happen. What the scripture says would happen. What the message or the theme of the story is. And the theme of the story is a people who turned against their God, who got punished because they worshiped idols and turned from his laws, and a people who went into captivity by slave ships around the world as prophesied, a people who have been oppressed as prophesied for over 400 years as prophesied, a people who are finally awakening in the land of their captivity as prophesied, who's being attacked by the dragon as prophesied. Is it all just coincidence? Or is prophecy being fulfilled? Has anyone, any other group of people lined up these teachings so well? And I'm not putting any glory in myself. I'm just telling you that the Most High has been revealing things to us so that we can reveal things to you, so that you can prepare yourself for the persecution to come, though it's going to be short, and for the return to our homeland. What do you want to do? What do you want to do, Israel? Do you want to serve the Most High, or do you want to get caught up in the politics of camp doctrine? You know, and like I said, I'm going to try not to go there too much. So, is this really it? All I can say is that it appears that everything the scripture talked about concerning true Israel's return to the land is occurring. Now, I know most of you do not sit through the other videos, so you cannot really see the full picture. As I've stated, I'm not a prophet, so I cannot say, thus says the Lord. I can only tell you what I see in the scriptures. Tie everything we have discussed about the end times to our 400-year captivity and our coming exodus from Babylon. I cannot see how things could go on for too much longer based upon what I'm seeing. Everything appears to be lining up. However, wait upon the Most High for confirmation. Make sure you are right with the Most High, because it's time to go home very soon, in my opinion. It is. I don't know about you, but I want to be right with the Most High. We need to make sure that we do things according to his will and have a heart for people and for love and compassion. Because some of you don't want to forgive, right? But God forgave us. You have to be willing to forgive and walk in the spirit of truth and love, not of hate. Because vengeance is the Most High. It's not ours. It's not ours. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. I will repay. So we must understand the signs are there. The enemy's on the move. The dragon has reared his ugly head, and he's coming for you. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to believe you're the target. You can stick your head in the sand. That's fine. But if you look closely at the information, it's true. And for white America, for you to say, you know, that we're not the only ones being targeted, hey, maybe not. But we are the focus of, we are the main targets. Okay? Because we do know from scripture that the devil will go after the remnant of her seed that has the testimony of Jesus. Right? So instead of saying all lives matter, maybe you should say Black Lives Matter. Because if Black lives don't matter, then nobody lives matter, right? And especially being the apple of God's eye, you need to understand that God is going to fight for his people. When Jesus came, Yeshua came, he came first to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, not to the Gentiles, right? It was by the fall of Israel that salvation came to the Gentiles, right? And so the gospel went throughout the world by the Gentiles. But as you can see, the time of the Gentiles is at an end. And you should see that all of the prophecies are lining up about that. Go look at my video, Fall of the Gentile Powers. It's over. I'm like, I can't tell you how much time we have left. 10, 20, 30 years, 40, 50, I don't know. I doubt it. I certainly think we're at the cusp of Israel leaving the land of our captivities around the world. That's just my opinion. And you can have yours. But look at the scriptures. Get right with the Most High. And let's pray for each other, because it looks dark. Peace out. Love y'all. Shalom, my people. And make sure that you love one another. Okay?